Welcome to another episode of Patrick Draws. My name is Patrick, and I'm here to teach you how to draw using basic shapes. Today's image was chosen by Kyan, and he chose Spider-Man 2099. So let's get into it. So here's this image of Spider-Man 2099 that I found, and the first thing I want to start with here is the head. So let's just throw an oval here for where the head goes. And if I throw a line kind of going through the eyes and then another one going down the center, that kind of gives us our guidelines on the face. The next thing I want to go draw is like some kind of a shape, a circle here for the chest area. So that kind of encompasses the ribs. And then I want to do another one for the hips. So the hips are going to be something like that. And let's just throw in some circles for the knees and the ankles. And same thing here for the elbows and the wrists. And these are going to just be our guides. And again, let's just go ahead and connect those with some lines from the hips to the knee, from the knee to the ankle. From the shoulder, I'm just going to add some circles here for the shoulders. Shoulder to the elbow, elbow to the wrist. Okay. And I want to add, let's go ahead and add a spine line just kind of going down the center between the neck to the hips. And then I'm just going to add in a couple of circles here for the hands and some ovals here for the feet. Now let's go ahead and just take a look at that without the original drawing. You can see it's already starting to come together. And I really haven't drawn much except for some circles and some lines. And this is going to come together even better when I draw in these shapes for the arms and legs. So let's start fleshing those out a little bit. I'm just going to throw in some ovals connecting these joints. And we've got a little bit of perspective going here on this arm where it's kind of going away from the camera. So again, we're basically just joining joints here with some basic shapes. And then I want to connect the ribs to the hips here. So let's just draw in a couple of lines connecting those. And let's take a look at that without the original drawing. And there, it's really starting to come together. So this is, if I'm drawing my own image of a superhero or a body without reference, this is kind of what I use. I use shapes and lines and get my pose figured out without going into any detail. So now that we've got this, I'm going to go ahead and move him over a little bit. And then over here, I'm going to basically create my own shapes. Give us a little room here. Okay. So I know that my head, I'm going to start with the head here. It's not going straight up and down. It's at an angle here. So let's take that oval, put it at an angle. And then I know that my eye divider line is a little low, and my center face line is a little to the left there. And again, let's just start throwing in some of these basic shapes here. So I know that the chest is going to be going through the head here and a little bit offset to the right from where the head is. And then I notice that the hips are kind of straight down from the shoulders. So let's do something like that. And I might have actually dropped that a little bit too low. So let me bring that up a little bit. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and draw in the spine. So the base of the neck would be right about here. And that's just going to connect those visually for me. And I know that the shoulders are right about here and here. And if I draw a line in between those shoulders, it should run through the neck. So that's correct. And I know that I've got an elbow here, and then a wrist is about here. Something like that. Let's go ahead and throw a circle in for the hand. from this shoulder, this arm, see how I'm placing these joints? They're a lot shorter than these, and that's because we've got that perspective going where the arm is going away from the camera. And so it doesn't, if you're just looking at this as a stick figure, it looks like this arm is a lot longer than this arm. Well, that's because of the perspective that we're adding into this drawing. And so let's throw a couple of circles here for the hips. And I'll just throw this knee. I can see it's around where his chest is, so I need to make sure it's up kind of high. And then the ankle is below this hips. So if I connect something like that. And Spider-Man gets these real crazy poses that the average human probably can't do. So keep that in mind when you're drawing these. It's not a basic Spider-Man pose is not normal for how a body might bend. Maybe like a gymnast or something, but the average person probably is not going to do this pose. So I see that this leg is kind of shooting straight off of the hips here. I'll put a knee in there, and then the ankle is almost touching the hip joint. So it's somewhere about there. So I can connect that. And then the foot kind of angling down this way, so I'll do something like that. Maybe a little bit bigger. And then I'm going to start fleshing in these skeletons. So here, let me just throw in a couple of shapes here, a couple ovals. Something like that. And again, I'm just connecting the joints here. And that's just giving him, we're building the body up a little bit. So I know that I need to connect these lines here, something like that. So it's starting to come together here. So you notice at to this stage, I haven't tried to add in any muscles or any of the suit or, the details of the suit, like these things sticking off of the forearm there. We're just keeping to the basics of the structure of the pose and making sure that our proportions are correct. So this is looking pretty good here. Let's kind of add a little bit of muscles in here. So I know that he's got a calf muscle somewhere in here. And this leg muscle, you can see it's kind of going up pretty high. And that's because the leg itself the muscles are compressing and they're moving, giving it some shape. And let's throw the calf muscle in, something like that. So I might add in some of the muscle structure now, something like the shoulder. Let's add in some circles for the shoulders there. Maybe the tricep. Biceps already kind of there. The forearm, we can add some shapes in here. Let's add a tricep. And again, superheroes are kind of tough to draw because you have to know a little bit about human anatomy. So the chest here is kind of coming down this way and then connecting something like that. We've got the stomach muscles. And again, I don't want to get too much into the detail just yet. I want to get things fleshed out here. So maybe at this point I want to take a look at this hand, and it's not really a circle, but that's giving us our idea here. It's almost like a triangle there, the way he's got his hand. And then we just take fingers one by one. If I grab my eraser and erase that original circle I had for the hand there, the hand's starting to come together. And I maybe do something similar over here, where I've got some fingers kind of coming off of the hand here, something like that. And then the feet, let's start. I know I need to get a heel in here somewhere around where the ankle is, so I might throw something like that, the heel again, and these things are just to help. Again, we're fleshing out the character here. So at this point, let me do something I don't normally do. I'm going to delete this original shapes because now we've got them over here. And so I can now look at this drawing to help me finish up my drawing on the left. But I want to take my shapes layer that I've been working on. I'm going to bring it down a little bit, just to use it as reference. Now I'm going to switch to a layer on top of it, or if you're working on paper, just take another piece of paper, like a tracing paper would be really good, and put it on top. And we're going to use our underlying drawing to create a cleaner drawing now. So again, let me start at the head here, and actually I'm going to change colors. And I'm probably, at this point, I want to drop my brush size down a little bit, about half of what I've been using. And that's going to give me a little bit of a cleaner line. And you'll see when you're trying to draw like a perfect circle or a nice round shape, it can be kind of difficult. So you have to do it a few times. Something like that. And then we can see that his jaw is almost like got a triangle going on in here, because it's kind of coming to a point down here where the chin is. So if I kind of just sketch that in, that's going to help me get that jaw built by using that little triangle there. Let me just clean that up. And again, I'm not going to try and deal with any of the details on the suit just yet. Let's just try and flesh out some of the muscles on the arm here. And again, we're using our shapes underneath as our reference, as a guide to help us kind of draw our own version of Spider-Man based off of this image that we're looking at. Something like that. And let's take a look here. Oops. Something. We'll just let's go ahead and connect some of these, the rib cage here a little bit. And again, I'm really just tracing over what we've done in the last stage here. And, you know, as you get into anatomy a little more, this stage can go a little bit quicker. But if I can just trace the underlying shapes of what we've already done here, it's getting us pretty close to what this artist had intended. So let's see here. I'd see that the leg under here kind of breaks up a little bit, something like that. And you know, some of these muscle angles are a little bit over exaggerated to what might be in real life, but that's okay. That gives, you know, that's what comes along with, the more you draw, the more you get your own style of how you like to draw things. And just because it's not an exact copy of what it looks like in real life doesn't mean that it's wrong. That's kind of how you can come up with your own style. Okay, let's see. Let's go look at the stomach muscles, are kind of staggered a little bit like that, and maybe a little rib cage. A couple of lines in there for the rib cage, and connect the pec muscle back here to the shoulder muscle, and a couple of lines here for where the neck would connect. And okay, let's work on this shoulder. And again, I'm really just tracing my underneath blue drawing here to get where I need to get. Little thumb there. And let's draw the pinky and connect that. Add that. Let's add a finger there and then another little finger there. Okay. It's getting us pretty close. I think I'm going to clean this up a little bit. So you can see the wrist is coming right out about there. So I'm just going to make sure I draw that correctly. All right. Okay, I think the body and the muscles are coming together here. Add some detail for the knees in here a little bit. And okay. So that's looking pretty good. I'm thinking, let's see, I've got a couple of details on arms. Let's go ahead and add these shapes in here. Just something like that. A couple of triangles, coming off. Something like that. All right, at this point, I think I can go ahead and start working on the suit. So the details of the suit. So let me just take I don't really need my underlying drawing there anymore, because now we're just doing some reference. We're going to just draw some of the detail of the suit here. So let's start with the eyes, and almost like a triangle is this. See how the eyes are? This is really negative space that they're using by outlining the eyes in this red. So I'm going to actually draw this shape here and this shape here to get me close to where I need to be with this mask. And then we can come back in and clean it up a little bit. So now let's use that as reference for where we need to add this red portion of the mask here. So something like that. Let me zoom in a little bit on the face here. A little more control. And I just want to make sure that the mask there has its own shape, and then we want to make sure that it colors well when I come to my coloring stage here. Something like that. That'll get us close. Okay. I might even clean up the top of the head here a little. Try and round this out a little bit, as I'm not too happy with that line work. Alright. Alright, so his suit is a little tricky, and I'm actually not familiar with this design. So I'm just going to try and mimic this as best as I can here. And I know more or less these lines are pretty defined by just hardline shapes. Okay. Yeah, this suit is actually a little complicated. So I'm going to do my best, but it might not be a perfect replica. But we'll see what we can do here. One more little thing there on the knee. And I think that's pretty good. So I think this will be interesting trying to paint this. But let's give it a try here. So let me grab like a dark blue here. And that might be a little too purple. Let me do something like that. And anywhere I think there needs to be some blue, I'm just going to try and fill it in. It's actually pretty good. Let me grab white here. You know, this isn't filling as easily as some of my other drawings, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my brush to fill this in. And if I pull up my tool options, I'm going to do draws behind, and I'm going to bring my brush size up a little bit. Okay. So let's see, I've got red. Let me just start filling in. Brush size might be a little too big. And I'm just going to trace in my colors instead of clicking and painting. And that's going to get us pretty close to where we need to be. So since there's some white in his suit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just change my background color so that it'll help me see what I need to color. And that gets us pretty close. So you can see the suit's not an exact replica of the other suit, but it gets us 95% of the way there. And you can tell that this is Spider-Man 2099. So that'll do it for this drawing. If you have an image you want me to draw, just leave your suggestion in the comments below. This has been Patrick Davidson with Patrick Draws. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.